I just got banned from Israel upon arrival and deported back to America for anti-Semitic or anti-Israel content. I flew out of New Jersey on an El Al flight to Tel Aviv on a plane with basically all Jews and had plenty of pleasant conversations and positive interactions on my way there. Believe it or not, a lot of Jews were excited for me to visit their country. Where are we headed, boys? We're headed to Tel Aviv, baby. Are they gonna let me in? Yes, sir. But of course, I was being tracked the entire time, and photos of me circulated in Jewish WhatsApp groups as I was asleep in the middle seat of the back of the plane. 12 hours in the middle seat later, I land in Israel and my passport scan says to go find an agent. I'm then brought to the back office where my interrogation begins. I tell him I'm here to enjoy the beaches of Tel Aviv, see some holy sites, and maybe do some street interviews asking some of the world's oldest questions, right? He then asks if I'm here to provoke Jews, if I'm hiding anything, if I'm anti-Semitic. I tell him no, obviously. The agent then goes like, you can just be honest, this is Israel. As if I said, yeah, I'm anti-Semitic, that would somehow go over well upon arriving to Israel. But I tell him no, I'm not. I don't hate anyone, and I don't. He proceeds to watch my videos about the Hasidic Jewish communities in upstate New York and New Jersey, where I examine how they use welfare to afford 7 to 10 kids. I try to explain the nature of the videos, and he eventually tells me to go sit down while they deliberate my fate. About 30 minutes later, he tells me to come back in the room and states that he's spoken to his higher-ups and that I've been denied entry into Israel due to anti-Semitic or anti-Israel content. I'm then handed a paper that I have to sign, which falsely claims that I've attempted to illegally immigrate to Israel, which is obviously bullshit, and I assume was done to prevent me from re-entering Israel for as long as legally possible, despite him telling me the real reason was due to anti-Semitic content. In fact, I checked Twitter and see that Israel's Minister of Diaspora and Combating Anti-Semitism is retweeting an Israeli news article that claims Tyler Oliveira, the Jew-hating YouTuber, is expelled from Israeli border on the orders of the Israeli minister. The fuck? He then quotes, I'm proud to have denied entry to Israel today to an unfortunate YouTuber who is using the harassment of Jews as a way to get clout on social media. Furthermore, let this be a lesson to all Jew haters and supporters of BDS. Whatever that means. Now for a second, imagine if me criticizing welfare use in black communities in America somehow got me banned from countries in Africa. Or the welfare users in Appalachia somehow got me banned from Europe. This exception only seems to exist when it's regarding Jews. So I tell the agent, man, it's a shame I can't visit the biggest democracy in the Middle East. And he goes, well, maybe you can visit Afghanistan. They confiscate my passport, take me to a brief holding room with a bunch of Filipinos, and then tell me I have a flight out at midnight, which is like 8 hours later. Now, it's clear to me at this point that the unspoken strategy is they want the accusations of anti-Semitism they hurl at people like me to eventually become true, to then justify their very accusations. But the problem is, there is no hatred in my heart, only a resolve to see things as they are. So try to answer this. Why am I, as an American, not allowed to question my fellow Americans who happen to be Jewish and how our collective tax dollars are being spent in America? And why, if my videos happen to involve Jewish people, am I now labeled a Jew-hating anti-Semite, while our greatest ally, Israel, that is the single largest recipient of American foreign aid in our history, then deports me, while their government officials publicly paint a target on my back while I'm still in their country. Adjusting for inflation, U.S. aid to Israel from 1951 to 2022 totaled $317 billion, making it the largest recipient of American foreign aid since World War II. But fun fact, we don't even have a formal mutual defense treaty with Israel. Yes, our greatest ally is not even technically our ally. For perspective, the US has formal mutual defense treaties with all 32 NATO members, Japan, South Korea, Australia, New Zealand, the Philippines, Thailand. And these treaties legally obligate the US to come to their defense if attacked and vice versa. The obligation is a two-way street, but not with Israel. In summary, we've given Israel over $300 billion in cumulative aid, we vote UN resolutions to shield them from international law all the time, we provide them with the most advanced weapons on Earth, and American troops die in conflicts to uphold Israeli interests, all without a formal obligation for Israel to defend the US. No treaty, no legitimate alliance, no defense commitment. So, they'll take our money, they'll let our soldiers die to eliminate existential threats to Israel, but I'm the second coming of Hitler if I get on a plane to visit the country that's the largest recipient of foreign aid that my tax dollars go towards. I get deported and called a Jew hater by Israeli officials for what? Looking for the truth? Is that illegal in Israel, the biggest democracy in the Middle East? I've refrained from exploring this topic to the degree in which it deserves because I wanted to first report on important topics, boots on the ground in Israel, before I was inevitably banned. But now, there's nothing to lose. I'm effectively perma-banned from entering. I think it's time we examine how a small country of about 10 million people seemingly exert more control of American foreign policy than any other country on Earth.
Choose in order to
radical.
Don't you stick things in my face.
A pro-Israeli advocate knocked a camera out of the hands of Allison Weir, president of the Council for the National Interest Foundation. The group just finished their press conference on what they call unjustifiable U.S. aid to Israel. The two sides met when the press club scheduled a pro-Israeli news conference to follow, held in the same room. The altercation illustrates heightened tensions on differing views regarding America's relationship with Israel. The Council for the National Interest Foundation wants Americans to know how much of their tax dollars are going to Israel.
$3 trillion. That's including a massive amount of direct money to Israel, then a lot of hidden costs.
CNIF alleges Israel receives so much aid and special treatment because the U.S. Congress is controlled by AIPAC, America's pro-Israeli lobby. Executive Director Philip Girardi says Israel spends a lot of money on U.S. elections.
There are many Israeli PACs, and they do give a lot of money very selectively to congressmen that they want to support.
The Council for the National Interest Foundation says many members of Congress fear if they don't always side with Israel, that they will face retaliation in their own re-election campaigns.
If a congressman crosses the Israel lobby by voting against aid for Israel or voting against some legislation that Israel favors, they very often will find that the next time they're running for office, there will be a candidate put up against them who is very well funded.
Giraldi is a former CIA counterterrorism expert. He questions why America gives aid to Israel when Israel conducts more espionage for profit against the U.S. than any other U.S.-friendly country.
They steal military technology. They steal information that is useful for telecommunications.
Retired Lieutenant Colonel Karen Katowski works at the Pentagon and says Israel receives preferential treatment.
We do not question what the Israelis want.
Katowski believes America is beginning to take more interest in U.S. foreign policy in the Middle East, in large part due to tough economic times. More and more Americans want to know where their hard-earned tax dollars are going.
The American Israel Public Affairs Committee, AIPAC, frequently writes legislation for Congress. The American Israel Education Foundation spends millions of dollars annually on paid trips to Israel for members of Congress. They're constantly taking members of Congress to Israel for the purpose of influencing them. The Anti-Defamation League, ADL, spends millions of dollars annually spying on Americans who are critical of Israel and uses massive amounts of money in smearing those people not deemed friendly to Israel. Mainstream media also promotes the Zionist agenda by accusing those on ADL lists as being anti-Semitic. The International Fellowship of Christian and Jews uses a $100 million annual revenue stream to promote Israel Zionism among evangelical Christians. The Central Fund of Israel uses a $20 million revenue stream promoting Israeli settlements in Palestine. Christians United for Israel, founded by John Hagee, run by a Jewish-American attorney from Tel Aviv, David Brog. Its lobbying arm is called CUFI Action Fund, headed by Gary Bauer, uses a $7 million annual budget to lobby members of Congress on behalf of Zionist causes. Hagee himself has given more than $80 million to Zionist causes in Israel. And then, if that's not enough in your spare time, you might want to check out the Washington Institute for Near Greece Policy, Simon Wiesenthal Center, Israel Project, Friends of Israeli Defense Forces, Women's Zionist Organizations of America, the Jewish Agency for Israel, American Friends of Likud, American Israel Cooperative Enterprise, the Israel Allies Foundation, the Jewish Policy Center, Leon and Harry Helmsley Charitable Trust, Jewish Council for Public Affairs, Zionist Organization of America, World Jewish Congress, Republican Jewish Coalition, National Jewish Democratic Council, Center for Security Policy, Israeli American Council, etc., 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 etc. These are all lobbying groups for Zionist Israel in Washington, D.C.
This is the man in charge of censoring social media.
We opened a center in Silicon Valley back in 2017.
That's Jonathan Greenblatt of the ADL. And they make sure to have all the people in the right positions in all the big social media corporations to monitor, alter, and censor social media.
I have software engineers and data scientists working at ADL. We're monitoring all this stuff, and we're working with all the platforms, by the way, Google and YouTube and Meta and Twitter and Reddit.
Elon Musk even complained about him when he took over X and complained that the ADL was always trying to ban people's accounts even for the smallest infractions. They absolutely never ever want you to question Israel or anything else. They maintain a political bias on social media through the ADL. They're the ones who write the social media rules. This ensures that that foreign country not only has a monopoly on our mainstream media, but also tries to regulate our social media as well. And if we're ever going to truly be free, we need to dismantle the AIPAC, BlackRock, and also the ADL.
And the secular nation state of Israel. There seems to be no real recollection of how this star became attributed to David. There is no mention of this Star of David in biblical scripture, and has only been used to represent the Jews since the Middle Ages. Before then, the menorah was the symbol of Jewish identity. The star was known as the Seal of Solomon, the great king. Some believe that God inscribed this seal on a ring for Solomon himself. Others believe this is simply an invention by medieval Arabic writers. Still others believe that the seal was invented even earlier by the Hellenistic Jews around 3rd century Egypt. Legend says the seal was given to Solomon by one of his wives, an Egyptian, who was daughter of the Pharaoh. This marriage would create an alliance between Israel and Egypt. The ring was believed to invoke and command demons. The use of this symbol began to spring up in 17th century Germany, originally only representing the Zionist community. In Islam, the one who possesses this seal will become the beast of the earth and will return to punish the unbelievers. 6 points, 6 outer triangles, a 6-sided hexagon, the Seal of Solomon. Perhaps the reason that the Star of David, the Israelite king, whose line would produce Jesus of Nazareth, is never mentioned in the Bible is because it does not exist, or at least by that name. But the Bible does appear to address another star, whose worship parallels that of Moloch, whose symbol is a star, the same star.
Yea, ye took up the tabernacle of Moloch, and the star of your god, Remphan, figures which ye made to worship them, and I will carry you away beyond Babylon.
Remphan was believed to be an Assyrian god of the planet Saturn, Moloch, Satan.